Everybody, Texicurians are here today with Scott Henneke. Scott and I have known each other quite a while because we work out together at the local. We'll plug them for just a second. And Scott, tell us a little bit about what you do. Scott is a real estate investor and helps other people do investing. And he also has a really big side gig, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So tell us about that, Scott.
I guess I moved to New Braunfels probably 15 years ago or so, and we got out of school at Texas State. My wife and I were in Houston for, I don't know, a year and a half, and we decided to move back. She said Houston wasn't for her, so we moved back here, opened up a real estate investing business in San Antonio. I'm doing that to this day. And on weekends, we tend to do a lot of hunting and fishing a lot on the weekends. So either at the coast or at the ranch.
And you are going to share a secret with us today that I'm really honored you've decided to share. This is the first time the secret's out of the bag or out of the family.
Out of the family.
And this was your grandmother's way of preparing backstrap, correct?
So, correct. And so it boils down to the tenderizing. So a lot of people use a meat hammer and smash it down. We use any kind of saucer plate, any type of plate, and we just cut it all the way through. So the objective is when it's all said and done, you could eat the fried backstrap with a fork. You don't have to cut it with a knife. That's the objective, trying to get it tenderized enough to where it just pulls apart and it's not tough.
Wow. Well, I have to tell you, I did let the cat out of the bag a little bit with my husband, and he tried it, and he's been cooking venison for many, many years, and he said that was by far the absolute best venison he'd ever made.
Like my wife, if she cooks, she doesn't really use a saucer, but when I'm at the ranch, we always do, for sure.
It brings back the old Texas. Okay, let's do a demonstration of that. So, Scott, I see it looks like you're going to cut off this silvery part on top.
We'll pull the silvery skin off top. It's just really tough membrane. That's not, you can't pound that out enough to really get it. I mean, it's edible, but it creates a really tough substance. But short of that, just kind of trim it up all the way across. And then what I tend to do is I always butterfly, because you don't have on some of these white-tailed deer, this is a whitetail, for example, they're not thick enough really to create a big piece. So what I'll usually do is cut it down about, say, 3/4 of an inch and go most of the way through, and then come down here on the side, and when I tenderize it, I'll butterfly it out a little bit and just kind of chop it all the way through.
So that really gets it flat.
Right. You want to hear it hit the wood. That way you know it went all the way through. And it's if it doesn't, then it's gonna leave a little spot that's not as tender as it could be. But then you can take a piece and get it sizable, something like that.
Yeah. Look at that.
And the plate doesn't matter. It's just trying to get that cut.
This may have been the great family secret.
So anyways, you can go to your liking. I mean, some of this, you'll have to get it a little bit more if you want it to, if you do want to cut it with a fork, but it's basically cutting all the way through that meat every time you get it down all the way. So
see the difference between what we had right here, how thick that was. I would say that's almost, an inch and a half in the middle. And then you basically got it down to about, a third of an inch, maybe?
Cut it down to a third, be fine.
Yeah.
Typically, just the butterflying allows for a bigger piece to fry. You can cut them in half and just go straight through.
So Scott, tell me about where you grew up.
So I grew up in Houston, went to college at Texas State, and then Colette and I moved back here, many years ago. So my mom was born and raised in Schulenburg, and my dad was born and raised in the little town of Frelsburg outside of kind of north of Columbus. So
two little German communities.
Grew up on little farms growing up. So
tell me about how the Hennekes got to Texas.
Sometime in the late 1900s, late 1800s, there was two brothers that came over from Germany, but something happened along the way. I don't know the exact story, but when they got here, they didn't like each other anymore.
It was a long ship ride.
And one of them ended up in Bernardo, Texas, which is kind of right out of the Mintz in the Columbus area. The other one in Hallettsville. That was.
Times were tough back then. It's kind of hard to put ourselves like. I read about those ships and what they were like coming over here. It was tough. It was not a cruise line.
But my grandfather that came, he was I guess second generation here. He actually grew up in Bernardo, and then he bought a place right outside of Frillsburg when started his family. So
those are typical things that my mother grew up that way as well. They had the hog, they had the cows, they had the milk cow, the huge garden that I always had to help in when I was a kid, and of course hog hay. I heard you talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Your son is carrying on the generation, and he was driving the hay trailer for you.
Right. So that's where we get a lot of this from. So growing up as a kid, you know, in February, we always would get together and make sausage or butcher this or, you know, and so to this day, I still kind of carry those traditions on and try to keep them moving. Otherwise, they'll be gone for
That's right.
forever.
That's right. All right, Scott. So we have some homegrown eggs from your from your parents' farm.
6 eggs.
6 eggs, okay. And we're going to break them into a bowl.
So basically, I'll put them in a bowl, scramble them up. I typically add a little bit of milk to it, and then
Like how much milk would you say? Like quarter cup or something?
half cup, a little bit of milk, and then I'm not a person that likes a lot of batter, so you tend to cook what you like.
What you like, and as you can.
So I'll typically put them in the flour, egg once, and then back in the flour.
So dipping it in the flour first, that just kind of gets rid of the wetness then on the meat.
Right, so it doesn't hold as much.
Doesn't hold as much.
Doesn't hold as
All right.
much, and then I'll dump in the egg, milk, and then back in there, and it'll pick some more up. But it limits what it's going to take. So if I did the egg first, and then the batter, and then the egg again, obviously I'll double the size of the batter. That's on it. But that's my take on it.
Okay, and that's what we're here for, is the Scott Henneke take on this.
And I typically, you know, most people, I don't season until, you know, it's all said and done. Some people will season it ahead of time. We tend to season after the fact. You lose a lot in the grease, stuff like that, so I don't even season it much at all. Some people do. I'll just get the eggs and kind of just beat them up a little bit, and then add the milk to it. And some people will soak them in it for a while. I don't tend to do it, so I'm not going to soak them for 5 minutes. I just tend to dip them and throw them on. So I'll just throw them in and lightly hit them, and then dump them straight into the egg, right?
Okay, so you just kind of let it float in there.
But other than that, it's a pretty simple process. It's not a, you know, getting the grease up to temperature. A lot of people, you know, like to get the grease in the upper 300s or better, but you know, get it too hot can be a problem too, right?
Okay, so that's what you're trying to get your grease to. And then you said that you generally season afterwards. What are your favorite seasonings to sprinkle on it afterwards?
I'm pretty straightforward. I'm just a salt and pepper kind of
Salt
guy.
and pepper.
I can't say I've got a lot of recipes, you know, all these crazy recipes and all that. I tend to, even like on a steak, just the salt and pepper. Basically just coming out of the flour, getting the grease hot enough from the very beginning. One thing that you can make, I say it's a mistake, but if you put too much in there, you get the grease cool down, and you start having, it starts not cooking crisp like I like it. So I tend to cook it a little bit slower, not so many pieces. Like this, I might do 3 pieces, and then that way it'll help my grease stay hot enough to where it's not dropping too low or having to wait for it to come back up in the next batch. And then we'll wait till it floats a little bit, and then you can go. I think the other thing is just to try to apply it, the seasoning while it's hot, while the meat's hot, it takes a little better. But that's it. Done deal.
Okay, here goes the big taste. Let's have a little piece of this. It's so crispy. Yeah. Oh my God. That is really good. This is so good. This is awesome. I know I have a surprise for you. Scott, thank you so much for sharing your grandmother's secret. This cat's out of the bag now.
No problem.
And when we have a tradition at Texicurians, we cook together, you get an apron. So now you're Texicurian.
Very nice.
Thank you so much. So much fun.